Well, Ben, thank you so much for being on. Great friend of mine, big supporter of SubTub, doing amazing things at Octane. And today, we want to talk to our audience about the customer journey, how you can maximize that customer traffic that comes to your website, whether that's through email and SMS. But before we even get started, I think one big topic has been around the privacy settings that have changed and how that's affecting subscription businesses. And there's a term here that you've used often, which is rented relationship marketing. So, can we sort of dive into that here to start?
So uh, let's start with like the last couple of years, kind of like painting the picture. So traditionally, how most marketing has worked, and especially Facebook ad marketing, Google ads, every kind of ad on the internet has been not reliant on has been reliant on third party data. So third party data being data aggregated by other companies, and then you rent it and pay for it. So Facebook doesn't rely on just like the data of like the customer on your website. It's looking at the aggregate across like hundreds of websites in order to understand the behavior of the person. This requires a lot of tracking. In the last couple of years, we've seen obviously a big pushback to that, and it makes sense. You know, people want to have more control over the privacy. We've seen what happens when users don't have control over their privacy. So the biggest first change of several big changes was from Apple when they made it possible for users to opt out of tracking in iOS 14.5, which basically meant that like if you opted out of tracking, you know, the Facebook or Google or whoever it was can't like track every little thing that you're doing, even like within the app to use for like advertising or like on your mobile browser, which is a lot of what people do. Suddenly, you know, the data that was being used to target ads, specifically retargeting, became much less valuable, especially as more and more people have opted out. About 96% of people who have opted out of tracking, which totally makes sense. So, okay, people have opted out of tracking, and now retargeting ads have suffered. And we've talked with a lot of our customers, we've talked with a lot of stores. Probably for a lot of you out there, you're seeing, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40% decreases in your conversion rate or in your effectiveness of your ads. And the other one is like, we've seen that number actually get worse over time as more people opt out and you get farther away from a fresh data set. So that was like the first wave. The second one comes in 2023 when Google will no longer track like allow third party cookies. So Chrome won't even support them. That means like none of that data is like even possible to go and collect. And so the result will be retargeting ads themselves as they exist today won't really work. Google has its own solution that we'll see how that works. But the result, no matter what, is for brands, especially e-commerce brands that have relied on these data sources, they've relied on Facebook ads to drive their traffic, to do their retargeting. You can't rely on that anymore. You're like in a new and more precarious position. The like solution, and we'll go talk about it, is to build your own data set, to do your own retargeting, and to build a deeper relationship with your customer, and to rely as little as possible on retargeting ads. And this is what we call zero party data marketing.
And so, I think part of it is though that the ads are still out there and they're still getting attention. We're just not they're not able to optimize them because they can't track them well enough, right? That's a big part of it, right?
Right, right. It's like it's kind of like in the past you could have like 100, like let's say 100 views of the ad, and those 100 views could be very targeted to the 100 people most likely to buy because you had all this data. That Facebook had all this data, to be super clear. Facebook and Google had all this data on exactly where they had been, what they had been doing, what they've been looking at on Facebook. They have far less of that data, and that will only decrease over time, especially as like, you know, the Android's going to have the same kind of feature in the very near future too. So without that, like now you run an ad, 100 people, it's kind of guessing. It's guessing like, oh, it's probably maybe these 100, but it's nowhere near as effective because it doesn't actually have enough data to truly know who to retarget. And like, look, in the past, you could do 5, like have someone come back and then retarget them 4 or 5 times and pay for that. and for it to be profitable when ads were cheap and they were super effective. But now you can't do that. Now, as soon as you possible, in the first time they visit, if possible, you need to get that contact info, some email, some phone number,
Yep.
so that you don't have to pay again for the retargeting ads that are just now less effective.
What are some strategies you're seeing brands put into place that are starting to work to gather this data? I know you got this playbook that's coming out, and I've given my thoughts on it, but tell me what you're seeing some brands do that are helping to gather a lot of this data. And what I think the funniest part is like you're starting to see that question again at the very end is like, how did you hear about us? Right. And that was like something that lived for a long time and then it went away. And now I think it's going to come back, but I'd love to hear your input.
So that this first of all, you mentioned the playbook. You'll hear a lot of this stuff, but the like step-by-step details, I'll mention it one more time. OctaneAI.com/playbook. It's all there. We write in depth, as you know, playbooks each year. This one has like more than 50 experts in the world of e-commerce, like weighing in on like this topic, as well as like detailed flowcharts of how you actually can like collect and leverage this data. So kind of like what we talk about, how you like solve it and like how brands are solving it. So like there's a couple of key steps. Like step one is to like start collecting more of your own data directly. And there's like a couple of ways to go into it. And this is like the shift away from pixel-based ads and third-party data and things like that. You're going to first-party and zero-party data. First-party data is the data that like you're tracking from customers on your site. Zero-party data is the most powerful. It's data that's directly volunteered from your customers. So there's a couple of key tools for doing this. One is a quiz or some kind of like guided shopping experience. So it's like asking like who you are, what you're looking for, what you're trying to buy, like do you own a cat or dog, really important questions that like for like this kind of onboarding experience or this guided shopping experience actually drives a lot of conversions for the store, because a lot of customers sometimes don't know what they're looking for. But it's also collecting this valuable data that you could use for like next step, which is the like personalization over your email and your SMS in particular. And then there's a couple other tools. We came out with one recently called conversational pop-ups. So pop-ups traditionally are like, I call it the equivalent of like someone walking into a store and the store like manager or associate going up to you screaming like, I'll give you 10% off if you give me your phone number. Which like, why would anyone do that? And like very few, like 4% is the average conversion rate for a pop-up in general. A conversational pop-up instead actually helps the customer by asking a question. Oftentimes it's, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And then recommends, and then gets the email or phone number and then recommends a product. The result is a much higher conversion rate. We had like one person, like one store just tweet out like their stats. They went from like 1.5% email collection rate to 7.5% email collection rate. And like 4x is the normal increase that we see in terms of conversion. On average, 1/3 of people who see a conversational pop-up interact with it versus 4 to 10% of a traditional pop-up. But this is also a way to collect that zero-party data. And then you were also talking about one other way, which is like that like survey after the purchase is another way to collect this data. Like, why did you come to us? All that sort of thing. Each of these points, it's all about the same thing. It's about asking questions directly and then leveraging that data, which is step 2, which is now take that data and actually personalize like the emails you send or the SMS message you send. If you already know what they're looking for, why should your welcome series look the same to everyone else? Like you already know now, like they have dry skin or oily skin, or they came for your vitamins or your supplements or whatever it is. You can personalize the subject line of the email. You can put them into different buckets. You can personalize the first text they receive. Everyone already knows this. It will convert much, much better, and they are far more likely to buy much more quickly, and that will save you a lot of money, and you will make a lot more money, and the customer will be a lot happier because 9 out of 10 consumers are looking for personalized shopping experiences. This is a like complete opt-in way of doing it. They know they gave that information. Now there's a much more personalized experience. Think of all of this as like the most powerful way to supercharge your email and your SMS marketing. That's what zero-party data marketing is.
And with the Also, too, I think like probably when they go through the checkout, once they've checked out, maybe building a customer profile, right? Like and like sort of enticing them to go in and build like answer questions that build out a profile for the consumer,
Yeah.
right? That's like a really good way to probably like get them. The next question I had for you though is how many buckets is too many buckets, right? Because like you start to have too many, like now you're creating a lot of different emails. Like, do you think that a brand could put people into 3 buckets or 5 buckets? In the subscription space, surprise and delight, there's maybe like different levels, but there's not a bunch of different products either, right? So how do you think about that, or what's your thoughts around it?
So like, I almost even want to like screen share like the playbook. We actually in the playbook have like example flows for like like a
Got it.
personalized welcome series and like a personalized post purchase series.
Love it.
And for those, I wonder if I can actually. This thing allows me to screen share, doesn't it? You gave me too much power.
Good. You can I want you to screen share. Pull it up.
this this is too
Actually,
much.
we can make you full screen once you get it up.
See, you know what the problem is though? I can't do it. I would have to. I'd have to reset the whole thing because of the Apple privacy things.
Oh.
You
All right.
know.
Well, so one, this is a free. This is free, right? This document that you have.
Yes, yes. So I'm not going to screen share because you can all go and
Let's
get
put
it.
it in the comments. We're gonna put it in the comments.
OctaneAI.com/playbook. Easy to get.
We'll have someone put it in the comments, so
So
people will see it.
So
That's
I'll
all.
say, like, we put a couple of examples of flows for like post purchase and like welcome series and things like that. Just like what the step by step look like. It doesn't have to look super complicated to make a real impact. Like it can be personalized by like just like 2 segments. So like it can be like the first email or the second email might be the same. Like in your post purchase series, you might place it. Like one might be about like thank you for your order. Maybe one's like a note from like the store or the founder, and then like you could personalize the next email based on like maybe like in our example we talk about like it's a workout like company, so like do you work out a little or a lot, and so then you could have like a different email for the answers for those two. So like the yes or no or like how much or how little changes what that email is, but you don't have to do like 15 different ones. Bigger the brand, the more you may want to do, but even if you just customize it just a little, or even just customize it with like the name or the name of the product that they said they were most interested in, you can do a lot of things. Because the other thing too is like uh, different products like Klaviyo allow you to have like custom words or phrases. So like you don't have to write like 15 different emails. You can just say like we've got your, and then like have like the placeholder for the product name, and it's going to be personalized for each and every person based on the answer they gave.
Yeah. No, I love it, and that makes sense. And this goes back to this, other thought I have around e-commerce, and I know that you've got a solution on this. But like the truth is, if you had a retail store and 20 people walked in, like you want to be able to talk to each one of those, and if you could talk to them each individually, you'd have a better chance of converting a sale. On a website, you get 1,000 hits to the website, but not all of them get touched, right? This pop-up that you talk about helps them get touched.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how SMS helps with that. How can you build out customized pop-ups based on maybe where the traffic came from, or based on where they clicked on the screen, or what product they're looking at? Let's talk a little bit about that. How does it get automated? And how
Uh,
important is it?
so there's a couple pieces here. So like one, like obviously you want to have the website react to the person. So this is like the first party data thing of like, what did they look at? What did they do? That's a first party data kind of thing. So like, are they about to leave? Exit intent. Did they just arrive? Welcome. Like pop up. Where did they come from? Like more targeting parameters. But then like second part, like for SMS, again, like a lot of it is the same as like email in terms of like if you could just like customize even one word in the first text that you send, it's going to be a much better text. People are especially looking for that because like the simplest example, like if you have like a store that sells cat food or dog food, then like the first like message might have like a picture of a cat food product versus a dog food product based on like which animal you actually have. That is suddenly a lot more useful and a lot more interesting and a lot more likely to convert than it was before. Super simple, but you can't do it unless you're collecting the data. And so like, we're providing the infrastructure to go and collect that data. And like we have a whole bunch of experts that can actually help you like implement like all those kinds of flows in your email and your SMS, like no matter kind of like what you're using. We have a bunch of fun announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks around all of those and some super awesome integrations and a couple things like that. So there's your tease.
Maybe we'll hear about them at SubSummit, a few of them.
I was gonna just say, so like I'm gonna go. I'm speaking at SubSummit, so super
Yeah.
excited to go and do that next month. I'm gonna be going super in depth. I'm looking at the actual presentation that I slaved over yesterday. I'm at 52 slides. Don't worry,
Wow.
a lot of the slides are like rapid fire and
Yeah.
like our
We don't want to get Paul a
animation,
heart attack here.
but it will go in depth into this problem and like the specifics of the problem and specifics of the solutions and like what those things can look like and a couple of key examples. We have like a couple like we've been working with a couple of our top stores on like the personalization flows from like Octane AI zero party data into Klaviyo email or into your SMS provider.
Yeah.
And like there's some very specifics we're going to be able to like show off next month and in the next couple of weeks.
I love that. And for those of you watching, Octane's got a lounge in the exhibit hall. So if you've got any questions, you'll be able to go there and speak to any of his team members. Ben, before we jump off, tell me a little bit about, because a lot of the brands that might be tuning in right now, some of them are still in this like growth phase, right? And so what are some like strategies you think, especially going to what we might call this like new era of like e-commerce, of this post-pixel life? What are a couple simple strategies that brands should implement that would help them convert? One, I like that you already said like get rid of the pop-up that says 10% off your email. I'm against that too. I like to give something of value, like here's a playbook or a digital guide, give me your email. But what are maybe two other things you could think of off the top of your head these brands should be doing, preparing for this post-pixel world of e-commerce?
I mean, one is a diversification of your acquisition channels. So, like for some brands, you're really heavy on just ads. Like that's going to really hurt really soon, if not already hurting. We were talking before, like we had the very beginning, like influencers, TikTok, multiple channels in which to go and like bring people in. Diversify your acquisition channels, and then also like from the flip side, diversify your like conversational channels that you have conversation with customers on, like email, SMS, and Facebook Messenger too. Along with like there's all your the places your customers are at. Like have a conversation with them in those places, market to them. There's like, we have Messenger. That's how we started. We have Messenger tools in Octane AI, but there's like tons of tools for doing this kind of like marketing across these different channels. And then but like the biggest one, and I know I've repeated myself, is like supercharge that like marketing on your own channels using zero party data. Collect this data and then sync it to your Klaviyo or your OmniSend or your SMS provider, your like whoever that is, so that you can go and leverage that data for deeper personalization. That is like what's going to differentiate brands over the next like year or two or longer. The ones that build the more personalized experience that have become much less reliant on ads as their main acquisition channel and have diversified their channels, they're going to perform the best. They're not going to be suddenly like hit hard when the cookie apocalypse arrives and Google turns off third-party cookies, because it's happening, it's coming. The more data you have in preparation for that, the better off you are. And there's some super cool things that you'll be able to go and do with that data, and like super cool things we're going to be able to do with that data for you.
How effective has SMS marketing been as of late? What do you see the future of that? I think it's obvious people open their text messages probably 99% of the time versus an email. But when is it going to be too much? When is it going to be that people are going to start getting too many text messages and ruin it for everybody? Like, what's your thoughts around it?
So there's a couple things. You have to not treat it the exact same as email. You can't send the same amount as you can email. You have to be more personal. Like I like think of it as kind of like your VIP list. Like, people really have to be opting in, But if they're like opting in, that's because they really like your brand and they really want to like hear some key things. Short and straightforward with a little bit of fun and flair is like often the way to go when it comes to like SMS. I think the big question will just be like what happens with the carriers and such over the next few years. The rules are starting to adapt and change. We've adapted. We have SMS on our platform, but there's also like the other providers of SMS marketing, your like attentives and postscripts and emotives, and there's SMS. There's a long list, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of adaptation. I think it's still a little bit of Wild West. There's still plenty of time to go and like start building that. You should definitely building it. It's not going away. You just have to treat it with a lot of respect and be tracking like the changes that are happening with the rules. But it's like email. It's going to be a core part of your e-commerce marketing.
Love it. Well, Ben, I want to thank you for all your expertise. For those of you that maybe missed it, we put in the comments the playbook. It's a free playbook that Octane AI puts on every year. It's amazing. I've seen it. I saw it last year. It was super helpful. Excited to read it this year. SubSummit is September 21st to 23rd. We're just less than 3 weeks away. Ben will be speaking there. You can buy both in-person and virtual tickets. You can go to subsummit.com for that. Ben, thank you so much. You're a great friend. I appreciate everything you do for Subta, and I cannot wait to see you in a few weeks.
Thank you for having me. OctaneAI.com/playbook. I'll see you all at SubSummit.
Thank you, guys.